welcome to the Antique Trader, and we're here from the Craftiques Mall in San Antonio, Texas, and we have a great program for you. I have Gerald Wittenbach here with us, and he does...
I do leather work, tooling and stamping, and I make purses, wallets, checkbook covers, holsters, basically any sort of custom kind of leather work that a client would want.
Okay, before we go into that, into his leather work, I'd like to ask you, what did you do for a living before you went into this, doing your leather craft here?
Well, I'm retired now, but for a very long time, a lot of years, I was a chemist in industrial chemistry, laboratory work in general, agricultural chemicals, and I did some environmental consulting for the government, for small companies on government contracts.
How did you become interested in doing tooling on leather?
30, 40 years ago, I ran across a kit, and I just picked it up to try to my hand at it, and it turned out that I got a lot of enjoyment out of it. And so over the years, I've made I was off and on, and about 25 years ago, I got serious about making, I made clutch purses and things for checkbook covers and desk nameplates for all my relatives.
This is a vintage craft. Tell me a little bit about it. We were discussing this before we came on the program.
Yes, it's our work here in this country now really originated in Europe, and it was brought over by the conquistadors and the people they brought with them. The American Indians picked it up. You've seen pictures of their teepee decorations and their rugs that were leather, and it slowly developed in the last century, the 1900s. There were craftsmen, artists that really promoted leathercraft through their designs and their skills, and they were involved in creating saddles and horse tack and that kind of thing from a practical standpoint.
So this is really a very vintage craft.
It certainly is.
That's all of a sudden become very popular.
Yes.
Okay, let's start from the beginning. Tell me, how do you start doing this, what you do?
Okay, what I've got is this is a scrap piece of leather that I've done a little bit of preparation on. What I have is a tracing that will be...
Let's hold this up so they can see it.
Okay.
At home.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me... What I've got is a blank piece of leather here that I'm going to trace the pattern onto, and I will carve it, a part of it, just to show that that's how it's done to start with, from just a plain leather. This copy right here has already been traced and carved. This one has a little bit, and I'll do some other stamping on, start the initial stamping on this. This one's a little further along. This one is just a spare in case I need something else. And this is what we're shooting for here, the final impression.
Okay, what's the difference between these and that? How do you shape that particular one? Let's hold it up.
Okay.
Let me explain it. Okay.
What I've got my set of stamping tools here. This is just a small part of the collection that I have that people use that are appropriate for the things I'm going to do on this demo piece.
Okay.
Okay.
So how long does it usually take you to do, let's say, that one piece that you're going to set on this part here?
This is a completed one of this pattern. I'm going through the steps that I got to here on these individuals.
Okay, so you're showing us, this is step number one.
Yes.
That's how you stencil it at first, and then you start just carving it out?
Yes, and stamping it. And the leather has to be the right amount of moisture in it. It is moist. If you notice when you feel
I
it,
can, I
it's
can
cool.
feel it. It feels very moist.
Yeah, and cool because the water is evaporating.
How long do you usually keep it in water before you?
It doesn't take long. What I do is dampen it and then put it in a bag, a plastic bag overnight.
So it absorbs the water, the moisture.
All the fibers get moisture and relax and become amenable to being shaped.
Okay. Are you able to show us just one little demonstration? Because I see you brought your little yellow mallet here.
Okay.
Is that what you plan to do?
Yeah. I was going to go through here. I guess I was going to stretch it out too far, but what I was going to do was show here, for example, here I'll take a stylus.
Okay. Let's see if we can get the camera in here so that
Okay.
we can kind of zoom in.
Okay. I'll just do part of this. For example, I'll take this area right here, and since this leather, I hope it's not dried out too much, but all I'm doing is tracing this pattern onto the leather, and you will see when I pick it up that this outline is as if it were scribed on the leather, and it basically is. And then I'll take a swivel knife. You can barely see that because the leather's still a little moist, but then I take a swivel knife and this is the carving step. I will cut this roughly halfway through the leather so that this becomes the outline that I will tool. And if you look at, as I show you these others, you will see that these have already been done in this have already had this step completed. So that's the initial step. And what one goes through.
Can I touch that?
Sure.
Wow. And it looks so easy. Is it hard?
No, the tool makes it easy. The moisture content of the leather makes it easy because the leather is receptive. Now, this one, I keep moving on you, but the whole pattern has been traced here. And the next step is called beveling. And I have a bevel here. Nope, that's not my bevel. Where's my bevel? Here's the bevel. These are easy when they're all standing up looking back at me. Okay.
Okay.
Now here's a bevel. It's angled. It's one of the many tools. And what I do here is, and I'm going to move to the next one now, and what I do is I depress the outside of one of the lines. One side or the other of the line will be depressed, and it raises this leaf, for example, or whatever it might be that I'm carving. Got to keep in mind which side is the bevel side. And so this takes a bit of time too, as you can guess.
But did it take you long to really practice to get to do something, a very fancy design?
Well, yes. It takes a while to learn it.
Did you take any special classes or anything
No,
like that?
I learned from there are a couple of people, like I say, in the 1900s, an F.O. Baird and Al Stolman. Al Stolman happened to work with Tandy Leather Company, developing the tools, and he wrote a lot of books and he made patterns for Tandy to produce and sell.
Yeah, Tandy has a lot of
Yes.
leather goods.
And Al Stolman is my favorite. I liked his designs more so than I did F.O. Baird because they're quite. Al Stolman is an amazing artist, and he would sketch out a design for a purse or a saddle, skirt, or whatever. And he did beautiful work. He passed away in '98. But anyway, his whole collection is available at Tandy. And so I got these books, and I read what he had to say and learned from from
and
his
you
methods.
studied them well. I have another odd question for
Sure.
you. I know that in Spain they have the wine botas that they call to drink the wine out of. Okay, are they made in the same manner?
If they are tooled,
They're tooled.
then yes, and they may be. There are a lot of skins that are used in leathercraft. For example, this is vegetable tan beef cattle leather. There's goats, and I would suspected the botas are probably leather or maybe sheepskin.
I think they're sheepskin. But I was wondering, what is it that they put inside to coat it? Because it has like a tar coating so that the water doesn't go through it.
That I don't know. I'm not familiar with what
I'm always intrigued by that. I says, because definitely the way they make them, I says the water or the wine is going to seep through it.
Yeah, it could be nothing more esoteric than just a fat, a real heavy tallow.
Really?
It could. I'm speculating. My chemistry background is coming up. That would seal it and prevent the water from passing through it.
That's very interesting.
It's just
So
a guess.
chemistry does pay off.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you bring us another project that you could show us?
Yes. This goes on through, and obviously there are many different types of stamping tools with different designs. They have different purposes. What I'll do here is I've got. This is a holster that has been traced and carved, and it's ready for me to start stamping it. And it's just a design on there. Okay, and then
Beautiful.
and that's just the start. And then here's another holster that has had all of the stamping done on it, and it's ready to be finished into a holster now.
Oh, okay. Now, do you put some kind of a stain to make it darker in the background?
I can't. Yes, I use dye. I dye the background. I didn't show you my background tool on there, but that's a special tool that does the background. And then after I get it dyed, and I put a finish on the leather as well, and then I complete the holster.
Okay.
This is a checkbook cover that I made.
Oh, that is beautiful. How long does something like this take for you to make it?
This would take probably 4 hours all told. Wow. Making the whole thing.
Beautiful.
Now, I'm starting there from just leather, very much like that first piece of leather, just a plain piece of leather.
So I gather if somebody would ask you to make something for them that's personalized or something that they want as a gift, you would.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah, we're going to put your name at the end of the credits of the program and have them call you, because I'm sure a lot of people would love to have things like this.
Now, that's another example in a larger piece I brought, of course, is this purse I made for my wife about 15 years ago.
Wow.
And here again, this is starting from
Amazing.
just plain leather.
And how long did this take you?
Now, this took a couple of weeks because there's a lot of handwork in it.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And you, of course, did all the stitching?
Lacing, yes.
Yes.
I do either the lace or sewing, hand sew. I do a lot of hand sewing. I do very little machine sewing.
So you have to actually punch the holes in previously before you?
Yes.
Tedious work.
It's intense sometimes.
You're a very patient man, I see.
Thank you. The leather, I want to stress the leather. We buy it either in smaller pieces or a whole hide would be about 50 square feet of leather, tan leather, or a side would be about 22 feet. It loses a little in going to the side. There are other smaller pieces from different parts of the animal that have different qualities in terms of stretchiness or thickness. And this leather is relatively thin, the one that I was working on. This leather is relatively thin, but like shoe sole leather is about 1/4 of an inch thick, and it's straight from the hide. And then there are embossed leathers, alligator skin, it looks like alligator skin, ostrich, all these are...
What is the biggest project you've ever conquered?
One of my purses, I have a large purse at my station, it's about like this. One of those was, not that particular one, it's a rather simple one, but it was a large purse, handles, with two pockets inside, two dividers inside for 3 pockets. And it's a good sized purse.
Do you think that the work that you do is so unique that it will be passed down as a part of history? Is this what you create? Have you ever thought about that when you're doing your projects?
No, no, I wouldn't think of it in terms of that. I don't, you know.
But you know, these are pieces that'll last forever.
Yes, I know. In fact, I made a clutch purse for my sister many years ago, and she carries it every day. And so she was visiting here a couple of years ago, and I looked at it, and the lace had broken and was coming out. So I took it, and I relaced it for her. Took me just
a couple of minutes, right?
Yeah, it didn't take long. I relaced the whole thing and sent it back to her the next day, and it amazed her. Of course, I wanted to be a hero with my sister, but some of it is some. It depends on the individual.
Yeah, but you're actually creating history here, something that's going to be handed down that says this was the maker of this piece.
I hope so.
I look at it as art.
Well, thank you.
That's the way I look at it. And I also wanted to ask you, have you ever done a saddle?
No. Saddle is it takes a special set of technical skills to make a saddle because of the work that it has to do holding a 200-pound man on a horse and doing work with it. It takes a real special person.
But somebody that's really fancy that says, you know, I want to put something that was done by Gerald onto my horse.
Yeah.
Would you ever tackle a project like that?
Sharon, I don't think so. I'll make a rifle holster that'll go on, the man can hang on his horse. But for one thing, saddles are relatively cheap now. They're coming out of Mexico. They run about $1,000 a piece, and that's a full saddle. It may not be very artistic, but it's a complete saddle, working man's saddle. Al Stolman, that I mentioned before, that's how he got his start, making saddles back in the late 40s, and from there his natural artistic abilities came out, and he put really nice designs on them rather than just a plain saddle working horse.
Well, Gerald, it's been a pleasure having you on the program. I can't tell you how excited I am about all this, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much.
And I hope to see you again.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the program.
Okay.
And we have Carnival Glass coming up in a couple of minutes. Just stay right with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Antique Trader, and I wanted to take the time to show you something very special. I have Pat Irwin here who's going to help me hold things up. I had his wife on previously, and these are very unusual candlesticks. These have been in my father's family for about 150 years. And as you can see, they've never been cleaned. They've been used, but I don't know how they used them because they actually chiseled out whatever wax or whatever was in there. But these were made by a blacksmith. My father's father was Patrick Malloy, who owned a farm in Ireland. He was a farmer. And he told the story to my father about that these come from 2 generations previously, and they were always handed down. And they were only used on special occasions. So if we can get a little bit closer here, we'll see that, imagine this being made by a blacksmith. So my father and mother were in Ireland in 1984, and they bought them back for me to pass them down to my children, and they're always to stay there to be used and just handed down. But I thought this was very interesting. They're very heavy, and I saw something that I hadn't seen before. We can get the camera to catch it up very close. It has a carved horseshoe in there, and it says good luck. So whatever they use these for, hopefully it was for praying. But as you can see, the bottom of it, I know that they come apart, but I've never cleaned them because we have to be very careful with their vintage and things that are old, that once you clean, they lose the value. Because a lot of people purchase these things because they want to buy a little bit of the dirt from the ancient times. So we shouldn't clean antiques like this. Now, I have Mr. Irwin here so that he can help me hold up, and I'll tell you a little bit about the history of this program. Maybe you can help me hold it up like this a little bit. When I first started, I did the Trader News, which was a paper about bartering, and I used to do stories on different things, on musical instruments, and creating heirlooms, and all these. And this was actually laid out by hand. And this was way back when, before we had all this modern technology, that I did this. And I used to deliver in 11 states. And I said one day when I came to New York, because my mother started to get sick and I had to go back to New York, I said, I was looking at a public access program, and my little girl said to me, she says, Mom, there's something with that program. She says, I can't hear it because there's no voices coming out. There was no audio. So I said, I called up the station and I spoke to the director of the channel, and he says, you and I should meet. So I went into his office and he said to me, he says, let me see what you could do. Since you think you could do better, let's see what you could do. I turned the Trader News into the Antique Trader. And here I am today, about 900 shows later, and several awards. And I'm ever so grateful. But before we go, let me show you a couple of other things. Okay. This was, let me see. Okay. The Trader News. Let me see if I can open it up here. And I have very few of these left, but we used to do stories on, I used to run Unique Creations advertising, and let's see, we used to talk about the Stargazer, we used to have poetry on there, and we also used to have, let's see here. You are so sweet and so kind to come and help me do this. This was our October issue, and this was all laid out by hand. This is something that, it was unique at the time, but you had to be very creative, and it took up a lot of time, and when I had to meet deadline, it was bedlam. It was like no eating, no nothing, no nothing. Then I had a pantry that I used to run for Sundays. I used to cook all Saturday night after I closed up my shop, and we used to advertise that also here, so that people would come in and eat after church. And there was no charge for it because everybody donated everything, but I just did the cooking. Okay, so let's see what story is on this one. Over here, it's music to my ears. We did a story of Love is Immortal Pieces. And this was the Thanksgiving issue. And as you can see, I have all the ladies and all of these things going on. But these were the 11 places that we delivered to. We went to Missouri to be one of them, Kansas, Oklahoma. We did a lot of traveling in 3 days, not coming out of that station wagon. Made sure everybody got a free newspaper. It was a lot of traveling. Okay, and here we go. One of the other ones that I did. This story is called Loco for Locomotives. We talk about the Lionel trains, the collection of Lionel trains. I know that before. I've been a paralegal. I did some paralegal work at the beginning when I came out of high school. And before my boss passed away, I gave him a Johnny Cash locomotive. And because he was a big time collector. But I've been into this thing of collecting for so many years that I'm really impressed, and I love everybody that I meet. It's a thing about history. I'm a history buff, and everybody that you meet that collects, they have something to say. And I've learned a lot throughout the years, and I'm ever so, so grateful. I'd like to thank you for being on the program with me.
Of course.
It's been a pleasure. And thank you for watching. Remember, history is in the heart of the collector. And we'll catch you next time on the Craftiques Mall, on the Antique Trader, where history is in the heart of the collector. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next program.